tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
And our expectation is that the checks will start to roll in March.
ICBC rebates, how much BC drivers can expect to get.
Also, a vaccine rollout unravels. Why did health officials suddenly pull out of a remote BC community? And
so this year there won't be that much of an atmosphere.
Time runs out.
Fearing a fumble. Will people follow the advice of BC's COVID quarterback and stay home for Super Bowl?
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. The checks will soon be in the mail.
Yes, ICBC policyholders can expect rebates next month, and it's because during the pandemic, auto insurance claims have dropped dramatically. As
Susanna De Silva reports, the Premier says the money didn't come sooner because of the corporation's financial situation.
The ICBC will be returning net savings of about $600 million directly to drivers.
$600 million ICBC says it saved thanks to reduced claims during the pandemic, being sent out in the form of checks starting next month, averaging out to about $190 per policy for those insured between April and September.
There are roughly about 2.86 million people who will benefit from this. And so they also know the length of time that each of those policyholders was insured during the period that we're talking about. And so they can calculate very, very, very easily what the average is.
Easily calculated and quickly sent out, according to the government. Welcome news for drivers.
It will be welcome to have a little bit of extra money in my pocket, for sure.
That's good. I mean, that should go back in our pockets, I feel, like if we haven't used it.
It was quite delayed. I think all the other provinces got it way before we did, but it's never too late.
But the BC Liberals also have questions about the timing.
It should have been months ago. We've been struggling with COVID and the restrictions now for a year, and there's no reason why rebates couldn't have been in the hands of BC motorists last fall.
This is quite simply a financial dumpster fire.
But the NDP blames the financial situation the Liberals left the Crown Corporation in for the need for extra caution, though the exact current state of ICBC's books won't be released until the next quarterly report. Horgan insists ICBC can afford it.
We're doing it in a prudent manner. We would not, based on the 3-year track record that we've had in government, put at risk the progress that drivers have made and that we have made to ensure that we keep rates down.
When ICBC looked at the numbers, it took a little bit of time to get the numbers right. It's very important not to rebate the money too early when they weren't quite sure about the numbers. So they would have been blamed if they had been too generous or too stingy.
The government is also promising more savings of about 20% after May 1st when the overhauled no-fault system takes effect. An online tool has already been launched to help drivers calculate their rebate and what their premiums could look like next renewal. Susanna De Silva, CBC News, Vancouver.
To the latest COVID-19 numbers now, 8 more deaths to report tonight. BC's death toll now stands at 1,218. There are 429 new cases tonight in our province. Active cases now just over 4,500. And hospitalizations are up slightly, 294 people now in care, 82 of those patients in critical care or ICU.
And there are 14 cases of COVID-19 at a high school in Kamloops. 11 students and 3 staff members from Sahali Secondary School have tested positive since January 18th. 200 students and 18 staff now have to self-isolate. This is out of a student population of 900. The district says they are requiring such a significant number of people to self-isolate as an extra precaution to reduce transmission.
BC's health minister is among several officials apologizing to a remote First Nation after a medical health officer withdrew more than 200 COVID-19 vaccine doses.
Dan Burrett joins us live now with more. Dan, first off, where did this happen?
In Coola on BC's Central Coast. Those vaccines were for the Nuxalk Nation. The inoculation was part of the BC government's aim to roll out the Moderna vaccine to remote Indigenous areas. Medical Health Officer Dr. John Harding arrived in mid-January. Emails between his team and the Nuxalk show a plan was set up to give the first dose to 110 members who live on reserves, starting with elders over 65, then those a bit younger, then immunocompromised members. There was also a plan to vaccinate 110 off-reserve healthcare workers at the Bella Coola General Hospital, you see there. About 75 elders were vaccinated the first day. But the nation says Dr. Harding told them he brought up more vaccine than he expected, 360 doses, and was trying to figure out how to divvy it up, wondering if it would just go to New Hulk and health workers or to non-Indigenous people off reserve too. Soon there were technical troubles. A nurse from VCH emailed the Provincial Health Services Authority saying they were struggling with inconsistent Wi-Fi and incompatible computers. Emails from Harding show no concessions were made for those tech troubles, and eventually he told the New Hulk community if they didn't have a plan by 10 a.m. the next day, the vaccine wouldn't be available. The New Hulk sent a plan at 10:02. Harding said that was too late and took the vaccine back. He then referred to the vaccine as a gift, saying, quote, VCH will honor its promise to gift a total of 110 doses to New Hulk, unquote. That comment floored the nation's director of health.
That was unbelievably unacceptable to me. Public health, not a gift. Public health is supposed to be for every Canadian, but now it's a gift for First Nations, Indigenous people. That, to me, was the most disheartening language he could have used.
Eventually, Coastal Health called the RCMP to escort Harding out of the community. Audio recordings listened to by CBC News between senior Coastal Health officials and the New Hulk indicate Harding ultimately withdrew the vaccine because a senior New Hulk official emailed him to say the New Hulk, quote, demands, unquote, that 250 of the 360 Moderna vaccines be released immediately to their nursing team. As for the police escort, VCH official indicates Harding was concerned and, quote, they probably thought someone was going to stick him up, unquote. The New Hulk community has said that made them feel as if they were criminal and savages.
All right, Dan, so what is Vancouver Coastal Health saying about all of this?
Our colleague Angela Sterrett, who broke this story, says Coastal Health would not respond to specific questions nor grant us an interview with Dr. Harding. But in a statement, VCH Board Chair Dr. Penny Ballum says, quote, she deeply regrets that we failed to provide a culturally safe and respectful experience for New Hulk Nation members while providing COVID-19 vaccines to vulnerable elders in their remote community. Health Minister Adrian Dix and Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry have also apologized, saying we can and must do better. And you can read the full story from Angela on our website, cbc.ca/BC.
Dan Burt reporting live for us tonight. Thanks, Dan. BC bar and restaurant owners are anxiously looking ahead to Sunday.
Yeah, the Super Bowl is usually a big draw card. Of course, it'll be different this year.
But as Megan Batchelor reports, business owners are also nervous about possible last-minute changes in pandemic protocol.
Super Bowl Sunday is one of the largest money-making days for bars and restaurants. Food and drink specials are draw cards for those taking in the NFL championship with friends. That is, in non-pandemic years.
It'd be like a normal day, I think, with people just watching the game.
This Sunday, no big celebration, no contests. He's not even ordering extra food and beverages. It's a lesson learned after what was the last big night for restaurant owners.
New Year's, we prepared, bought a lot of food, and then all of a sudden we got closed down, and if you can't move that stuff, then you have to throw it out.
Happy New Year. On December 30th, Dr. Bonnie Henry ordered bars and restaurants to stop serving booze at 8 p.m. New Year's Eve. It meant wasted food and smaller profits, but there may have been other impacts.
What happened was our 8 p.m. seatings in restaurants and pubs canceled their reservations. People literally called up and said, forget it, I'm going to have a party at home instead.
The next BC COVID briefing is Friday, making industry professionals wonder if new restrictions might be on the table.
If you want us to not host Super Bowl gatherings at all, right, and don't even want us to show it on the television, you need to tell us that right now, because people are booking pay-per-view and spending money on it. People are ordering in extra chicken wings and nachos, right? Let us know so we can have your back on that.
Today, though, Premier John Horgan suggesting the pandemic playbook might not be changing for restaurant owners. It could be the same protocols they're now used to.
You don't need to wait till Friday to know that on Sunday you should not be, the hospitality sector should not be welcoming large numbers of people into a crowded space.
Something the main restaurant and bar is planning on. They're just hoping there's no surprise moves before game day. Megan Batchelor, CBC News, Vancouver.
One person is dead and 2 others are hurt after a mud rush incident at a mine near Kamloops early this morning. New Afton mine owner New Gold says the incident happened just after 1:30 this morning. 2 New Gold employees have suffered non-life-threatening injuries and got medical care, while 1 contract driller is presumed dead. The company says the copper and gold mine has been shut down and the on-site emergency management system has been activated. BC's Chief Inspector of Mines has initiated an investigation into the incident. The RCMP and BC Coroner Service is also on scene.
The man convicted of murdering a Japanese exchange student in Vancouver's West End has been granted a new trial. A jury found William Schneider guilty of second-degree murder in the 2016 death of Natsumi Kagawa. But Schneider argued the judge should not have allowed the jury to hear a conversation where he admitted the crime to his brother. The appeal judges agreed the original judge erred in allowing that conversation because it lacked key pieces of context. Schneider pleaded guilty to interfering with Kagawa's body, but has denied killing her.
Friends and family of a missing Chilliwack mother are asking anyone with information to come forward. They're posting flyers tonight in hopes of finding her after she disappeared on Saturday.
She has 2 little boys, so we need her to come home. We need to find her.
As investigators search for 23-year-old Shailene Keeler-Bell, they're asking the public to watch out for her as well. She's a white woman standing 5 feet 2 inches tall with a slender build. She has bleached blonde hair and brown eyes. She is linked to a gray 2021 Hyundai Tucson, like the one seen here. License plate is CRN75V. Anyone with information is asked to contact police.
Well, Canada Line passengers can expect service as usual tonight. The strike between unionized workers and their employer has been averted. With the help of a mediator, Pro-Trans and the union, which represents about 180 workers, came to an agreement earlier today. In November, 98% of members voted in favor of job action. Canada Line employees wanted better sick leave and wage parity with SkyTrain workers. Details of the tentative agreement are not being released.
Well, home sales in much of Metro Vancouver in January increased over last year as pent-up demand outpaced supply. Sales started the new year off with a bang, up 52% over last January. The Real Estate Board says limited supply is making buyers more competitive, and that's driving prices up. The benchmark price of a detached home is just over $1.5 million, a 10.8% increase over last January. The benchmark price for condos, just over $680,000, with values rising 2.2%. Overall, January's sales were more than 36% above the 10-year average.
Okay, meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with the first check of the forecast. You tweeted out earlier that the rain was chunky in North Vancouver. I thought you might be fat-shaming the precipitation at that point, and I didn't know whether to bring a spoon or a fork to get every drop.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I stand by that non-scientific term, but I should have said thick, good-looking rain. That is exactly what we had across parts of the North Shore. Just a touch of wet snow mixing in with the rain as we saw heavier downpours across Metro Vancouver today. It was showery, but yes, heavy at times, and snow levels certainly much lower than where we were at yesterday. Let me show you the radar right now. We do have some showers still set to cross the island and eventually the Strait and into Metro Vancouver. So we are not done with the rain tonight, even though we're in a bit of a break between systems right now. I've got our whole week's forecast lined up to go on the coast of BC, thanks to a general northwesterly flow, that low sitting off the coast of the island. That's our tonight story. Clearing, though, that's what Haida Gwaii and central and northern coastal sections had today. That's our story for tomorrow, and then Thursday, another system rolls in. But get through the rain tonight, and we will be rewarded with a very good-looking Wednesday. I've got lots of sunshine and clearing skies. I'll take you through it and try and find some more sunshine later on.
Looking forward to it, Johanna, if you can find the sunshine, that is. Thank you.
And a reminder, you can also watch our newscasts live on CBC Gem.
CBC Vancouver, also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.
Well, it likely won't be available until next year. But that's not stopping the Trudeau government. Coming up, Ottawa's plan for a made-in-Canada COVID-19 vaccine. And thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream tonight. Well, what started out as a family project during the pandemic has turned into hundreds of sandwiches for homeless shelters every day.
A group of volunteers prepares them and delivers them across Montreal. Chloe Rinaldi has more on the initiative and the woman who started it.
NDG resident Kirsty Jago is handing off today's delivery. Boxes of sandwiches to feed those who need it most. At the start of the pandemic, she started Bread and Beyond, a community group that makes sandwiches for homeless shelters.
One of the main reasons I had 2 teenagers at home, we were needing to do something, but there was a huge sense of wanting to give back in the time. You know, there's a sense of fear and uncertainty, and this gave us something that we could actually do to feel as though we were giving back.
And the project grew quickly.
We called around a lot of the other shelters in Montreal and to see if there was a need, and yeah, the need is overwhelming.
So Bread and Beyond went from making 200 sandwiches a week to close to 3,000, and now there are more than 100 volunteers helping out. Some of them are students from Montreal area private schools.
They make the sandwiches at home, they bring them into school, the next morning we go to the school and pick them up. I think what we've developed here is a pathway that is low COVID risk for people to be able to give back.
Today, the group is delivering food to Chez Doris. It's a women's shelter. The executive director says it's a big help since they've doubled the number of people they serve because of the pandemic.
It liberates our kitchen staff, either if we're short-staffed or if they have to divert their attention to other things such as doing inventory of food.
For volunteer Rebecca Savard, the rewards go both ways.
It's overwhelmingly a happy experience. The people who receive the sandwiches are, first of all, just always surprised with the volume of what we're delivering and just very grateful that we can help them in such a challenging time.
Kirsty Jago hopes to enlist more volunteers across the city to prepare the meals. She hopes to transform Bread and Beyond into a registered charity so people won't have to pay out of pocket to make the sandwiches. Chloe Rinaldi, CBC News, Montreal.
Nice initiative. Always great to see all this charity work that's still being done during the pandemic.
Yep, a lot of sandwiches, that's for sure. Nice effort there. Okay, back in just a few seconds. We have more on Justin Trudeau's announcement about the made-in-Canada COVID-19 vaccine and the sentencing of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. Stay right here. Until then, enjoy the view of downtown Vancouver.
Well, the federal government says the country remains on track to meet its COVID-19 vaccination targets over the next several months.
And today, the Prime Minister revealed Ottawa is looking even further into the future. CBC's David Cochran has details on the government's plan for a domestic vaccine source.
As Canada struggles to get vaccines from abroad, a plan to start making them at home.
We've signed a memorandum of understanding with Novavax to produce their COVID-19 vaccines at the new NRC Royal Mount facility in Montreal.
It's a step towards a domestic vaccine source, but it's months away from paying off. For starters, Novavax is still under review by Health Canada. The facility in Montreal isn't built yet, and once it is, the facility also needs Health Canada certification. Then Novavax has to scale up production and start delivering.
So we expect by the end of the year to be in a position to be producing vaccines. And we're talking around 2 million doses a month.
But the end of the year is months after the target of full vaccination by September has passed.
But why did the Liberal government take so long to act?
The Conservatives argue that focusing on a domestic source earlier could have accelerated domestic vaccinations.
We're frustrated by Justin Trudeau and the Liberals' failure to secure and get vaccines into the arms of Canadians.
The Prime Minister insists that existing vaccine contracts will ultimately get the job done in the short term. These measures are about the long term.
We need to restore our capacity in our pharmaceutical industry in Canada to supply vaccines to Canadians, whether it's for further waves of this virus or it's for future viruses.
The government is also investing in vaccine production in Saskatchewan and British Columbia, but that's for 2022, even 2023, making them less about getting Canada through this pandemic and more about the next one. David Cochran, CBC News, Ottawa.
Variants of the coronavirus remain a concern among medical professionals and the public. According to one expert, though, vaccines are still doing their job.
It appears that the vaccines, while still effective against those variants, appear to be less effective against them. Now, it's still important to note that the vaccines still work, the current vaccines still work, but they might not be as protective as with non-variant strains. And on top of that, it's also important to recognize that even with those variants, the vaccines were still able to prevent severe illness. So no hospitalizations and no deaths.
Dr. Bogosh says despite the emergence of a coronavirus variants, we can keep the virus under control. He recommends doubling down on basic public health guidance, safer indoor environments, safer schools, and safer workplaces.
Meantime, in Britain, the government is racing to try to control new variants of COVID-19. A new mass testing plan has been launched to track down the South African variant.
Renee Filipponi has the latest from London, where it appears the UK variant has some new and concerning genetic changes.
Hello, we're from
Volunteers go door to door, offering COVID tests to everyone, even the asymptomatic, in a race to control variants of the virus.
We'll come back and collect it in a couple of hours' time.
This program is targeting 80,000 people across England, where the variant from South Africa has been found. There are 2 positive cases in this community.
They haven't been in contact with anybody, as far as we know, that's been to South Africa. So we just want to see whether or not it is actually spreading.
We have to come down on it hard. Our mission must be to stop its spread altogether.
The UK is also struggling to control its own fast-spreading variant, first found in the southeast, but has now mutated again, found in a couple of clusters where infection rates are high.
It is a really concerning change that we're seeing in the UK right now.
This epidemiologist says the mutation makes it similar to strains found in South Africa and Brazil, which may reduce the effectiveness of vaccines.
It really highlights the potential of this virus to adapt in many different places, leading to the same mutations popping up again and again through different parts, suggesting that these are in some way favorable to the virus.
When it comes to the new variants, experts say vaccines still appear to prevent severe COVID. The push to inoculate is a priority. 10 million doses have been given already in the UK.
Let's get everybody immunised. That makes a huge difference. These variants, you can't really hold them back. You can slow them by having border controls, but all the experience is that eventually they arrive.
Unwelcome news for those weary of lockdown.
Obviously it's of concern, but I've been very careful about staying at home.
A concern shared by the government, chasing after a virus that appears to have changed yet again. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, London.
The pandemic has left many of us looking for inspiration.
And that is exactly what Captain Tom Moore gave to an entire nation simply by walking.
The World War II veteran died after testing positive for COVID-19.
As Margaret Evan explains tonight, not before raising millions and lifting spirits, too.
From the confines of an English country garden, Captain Tom Moore made a beeline for the heart of this country with each careful step on his walker, far surpassing his original aim of raising just £1,000 for the National Health Service as it fought COVID-19 and achieving national hero status along the way.
Thank you very much, all of you, throughout the world.
But in the end, he was diagnosed with COVID-19 after a bout of pneumonia. He died in hospital, surrounded by his family. The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, led the tributes.
He became not just a national inspiration, but a beacon of hope for the world. Our thoughts today are with his daughter Hannah and all his family, and his legacy will long live after him.
Born in 1920, he fought in Burma during the Second World War. His feat of raising millions for healthcare workers has been celebrated in a special postmark, his own birthday fly pass, the gratitude of an entire nation, and the Queen, who made him a Knight of the Realm, but not before a little trademark humor.
If I kneel down, I'll never get up again.
Despite the twinkle in his eye, he offered a serious and much-needed message of hope. Tonight, many were laying flowers in his memory.
We're gutted, really gutted. It's just such an inspiration in such a really sad time.
For many here, the image of his frail figure, doggedly walking laps, came to symbolize the strength of the human spirit, of goodwill and generosity and perseverance.
The sun will shine on you again and the clouds will go away.
They are words, no doubt, he would have hoped will live on without him. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny has been sentenced to 3.5 years in prison for violating his probation by getting medical treatment in Germany. One of Putin's fiercest critics, his arrest has led to protests across the country recently. Chris Brown has more from Moscow.
Well, I'm outside the Moscow courthouse where Russia has just sentenced its most outspoken, highest profile opposition politician, Alexei Navalny, to jail. Before he was sentenced, Navalny pleaded with the judge, pleaded with the prosecutors not to be a part of what he called a corrupt regime, but to no avail. Navalny was actually sentenced based on a charge from back in 2014, a charge of fraud that the European Court of Human Rights said was unfounded. The Russian government even paid Alexei Navalny compensation and gave him a suspended sentence, but because he returned from Germany against the orders of the Kremlin, the prosecutors changed that sentence to a full prison term. But before he was sentenced, Navalny delivered a blistering attack on President Vladimir Putin. He called him a thieving, small, old man living in a bunker, and he said the only purpose of sending him to jail was to scare tens of millions of other Russians, and he told them, do not be afraid. Navalny had already survived an assassination attempt and had just returned to Russia. This will be a crushing blow to not only him, but his wife Yulia and his family. She was in tears in the courtroom. He'll now have to spend up to 2 years and 8 months of hard labor in a Russian penal colony. Chris Brown, CBC News, Moscow.
2 FBI agents have been shot to death near Fort Lauderdale, Florida. 3 other agents have been hurt in one of the bloodiest days in FBI history. The agents were trying to serve a search warrant at a gated apartment complex in Sunrise, Florida, early this morning. The FBI says they were investigating a case involving child pornography and violent crimes against children. The suspect was also killed.
Well, Joe Biden signed executive orders today on U.S. immigration, specifically to reunite migrant families torn apart at the border. 2 weeks into his presidency, it's a signal of his priorities.
As Katie Simpson tells us tonight, bigger changes won't be as easy as signing a piece of paper.
At a brisk clip, the president is chipping away at his predecessor's policies.
We're going to work to undo the moral and national shame of the previous administration that literally, not figuratively, ripped children from the arms of their families.
Joe Biden signed 3 more executive orders, one to review and eventually eliminate Trump-era immigration policies, another to study the root causes of migration, and an order that creates a new task force with the sole purpose of tracking down the parents of the remaining 600 or so kids separated from their families under Donald Trump's zero-tolerance migrant policy.
It was traumatizing, certainly traumatizing for the children.
Jody Goodwin helped reunite hundreds of families separated by that policy and says the trauma does not go away.
The moms will call me and ask me for advice and resource help to try to get psychological care for their children who still have nightmares and wake up screaming at night.
While the president can use executive orders to repeal policies, substantive change will require new laws passed by Congress. But immigration and border security are considered such divisive issues, it will be difficult to build support, even with Democrats controlling the House, the Senate, and the White House.
I suspect the same political fights will occur that have always occurred, but I think the country is tired of some of those really racist, xenophobic policies that the Trump administration enacted.
The Senate served as a fresh reminder of existing divisions, with a vote nearly down partisan lines
raise your right hand.
to confirm the new Secretary of Homeland Security, who will play a significant role in immigration policy. One of their biggest challenges ahead will be reuniting families. Many of the parents have been deported, and there are few records documenting the details. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
As Canada takes an important step toward distributing its own vaccine, its current rollout is under the microscope. So how are we actually doing when it comes to vaccine distribution? We'll hear from Dr. Murthy next.
A big day for one of Canada's most famous weather forecasters. Wiarton Willie marked 40 years on the job. And with much of the country still caught in a fierce cold snap, the celebrated Groundhog faced some extra pressure today to come up with good news. Ron Azawa reports.
This is what it was like again today across much of the country. More record-breaking, bone-chilling temperatures. So, when anybody, anything, claims to have an ability to predict how long this is all going to last, a lot of people are going to listen.
Don't mess with me, pork chop. What day is this? It's February 2nd. Groundhog Day.
While Americans have their Puxatawny fill, Canadians have Wiarton Willie.
There he is, Wiarton Willie. He's wide awake, ready to make his prediction. Wiarton Willie has said it's going to be an early spring.
So he's always right. He's always right.
Come on.
No, he is.
Good morning, Groundhog Central.
At Groundhog Central, the phones were lit up with callers from across the country, wanting to know what Willie had to say. And thousands of Canadians visited the rodent on the internet. Willie has his own website.
We've been on the internet for just over 2 weeks now. We've had over 2,000 inquiries from all over the U.S., Canada, and the U.K.
So, good news in Canada, but bad news in the United States. Puxatawny Phil predicted 6 more weeks of winter. But the people who believe in Willie are sticking with him. Willie is telling them what they want to hear. And that is comforting news for everybody. Ron Azawa, CBC News, Wiarton, Ontario.
About 300 people and top-hatted dignitaries gathered on a hillside in Puxatawny, Pennsylvania, to drag a reluctant Mr. Groundhog from his burrow. It was wet and the temperature was 2 degrees.
But failed to see his shadow.
It was before dawn and there would have been no shadow anyway, but still, tradition says it heralds the imminent end of winter.
So we can start tanning early this year.
All right! Yeah!
The legend may have a few more believers today, at least in Canada. In most parts of the country, the weather is untypical, driving rains instead of snow. Weather forecasters are running their computers full tilt, trying to figure out where the Farmer's Almanac went wrong when it predicted an early, tough, and long winter.
We normally have an airflow that goes from the Northwest Territories into southeastern Canada. This year, the pattern has changed considerably. We have a flow directly from the Pacific. It's milder air, and for a 2-month period, it has held up very, very consistently.
Some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
And if we drive less, we should be paying less. And that is what other jurisdictions are doing as well. And so British Columbia is doing exactly what other provinces and also US states are doing and other insurers around the world.
BC drivers are going to get a partial refund on car insurance. It's because of the hundreds of millions of dollars ICBC has saved during the pandemic. The average rebate will come out to $190 per driver, but could be as high as $400. This is separate from premium reductions expected when BC's new insurance model comes into place.
BC health officials have apologized to the New Hulk Nation after a medical health officer withdrew more than 200 doses of COVID-19 vaccine. Indigenous leaders had been told they were intended for their people. After technical and communication problems during the vaccine rollout in Coola, the medical health officer decided to remove his team from the community. The planned inoculations were part of the government's plan to roll out the Moderna vaccine in remote Indigenous communities.
There are 14 cases of COVID-19 in a high school in Kamloops. 11 students and 3 staff members from Sahalee Secondary School have tested positive since January 18th. 200 students and 18 staff now have to self-isolate as an extra precaution to reduce transmission.
And with more school exposures and increasing concerns over COVID-19 variants, it becomes more important to get people vaccinated efficiently.
The approval of a Canadian-made vaccine might be an important step, even if it's months away. But how are we actually doing when it comes to the vaccine rollout? Dr. Srinivas Murthy, an infectious disease specialist at UBC we often have on the program, spoke to CBC News Network and Andrew Nicholson to grade Canada's vaccine rollout.
I think we're a solid B student, I guess you would say. I think I would put the UK well ahead of us. They've been able to scale out their vaccination really well. I think obviously, as the prior reporter commented, supply has been our largest constraint. So I would put us somewhere in the doing okay. We can do a lot better.
Yeah, and you know, so the UK, you bring up the UK. Is it fair to compare Canada with other countries that are maybe smaller geographically? The UK has, you know, almost twice our population. Israel, very small geographically, and you know, maybe a quarter of our population or so. Are these comparisons fair?
I think they're fair. I think there's a classic health system saying every system is perfectly designed to get the results that it gets. And so I think with Canada being reasonably slow, it speaks to a lot of the challenges that we've had for many years in the Canadian system, mainly the centralization, the provinces with control and different fires. And so I think geography is one factor that's slowing us down, but I think the major factor that's slowing us down is the way our health system is designed.
What have we done wrong in Canada, and what do you think we need to be doing better?
I think what have we done wrong is that I think it's hard to say. I think it's difficult to change a health system that exists for generations. I think things we can do better is purely to engage the larger community, the family doctors, the pharmacists, everyone else out there who's willing to provide vaccines to patients and leverage those opportunities to get into arms. The challenge right now is supply. And I think that's going to be the challenge for the coming weeks and months. And that's a separate challenge compared to the big challenges of rolling it out across the country.
So, Dr. Murthy, when you hear the federal government say over and over again that, you know, there are going to be 6 million vaccinations here by the end of March, so that's 3 million Canadians if it's the 2 doses, do you have faith? Do you have faith that they're going to achieve that 6 million by the end of March?
I hope so. I hope that we can achieve that. So, remember that every country in the world is looking at these exact same vaccines and wanting them. And so we're in this sort of very difficult scenario at wrestling with the EU and low-income countries about a very rare commodity. So whether we can get 6 million doses by March depends on whether the companies can make them, and there are so many variables that go into that equation.
Well, it's not only whether or not the companies can make them, it's whether or not the companies ship them to us, because that has been an issue too. And I know you're not a politician, but what do you make of some of these, you know, the fact that we're not on an exemption list, that we have been receiving lots of kind of commitments from the European Union that, yes, these export control mechanisms are there, but they probably won't apply to Canada until they do apply to Canada for something unforeseen. Is that concerning to you?
Oh, without a doubt. I think it highlights the system of every country sort of fending for itself and trying to scrape every pharmaceutical company's barrel for every last vaccine is going to lead to this situation. And I think if we had collaborated with all of the countries beforehand, which all those systems were in place, then I think we would have been a much more coordinated approach to stemming this pandemic globally.
Dr. Murthy, appreciate your insight and time as always. Thank you very much.
Take care. Have a good day.
Well, today is Groundhog Day. It's felt more like the movie Groundhog Day every day this past year. You know, the movie where the same thing happens over and over and over again. We'll bring you more on why it feels that way coming up.
And just approaching 20 to 7 on this Tuesday night, a look at up Cambie Street towards City Hall. Well, the rain was once again relentless today for much of the South Coast, but the end is in sight, albeit briefly. Johanna's forecast coming next.
They sleep together, they play with each other, they have a great time. The pig will clean the kitten, actually, and every once in a while you see the kitten actually cleaning the pig's ears. So it's kind of funny. He licks and he goes right into his ears and licks them and stuff. About 3 months ago, my neighbor had told me that she was getting a pig, and I was so excited that I had to join in with her and got one also. He's just the nicest little, crazy little pig ever, and very, very low maintenance. And just recently, I ended up getting a kitten from my sister, and wow, all of a sudden, they two of them, just right from the beginning, became the best buddies ever. They just love each other. I'm not sure where it came from.
The Market Report is brought to you by Fortis BC. We've got even bigger rebates.
Rebate.
Whoa! On select high-efficiency equipment for business, but only for a limited time.
Jeff Bezos is stepping down as the CEO of Amazon, a company he founded nearly 30 years ago. In a note to employees, Bezos says he will leave the job in the fall and become the board's executive chair. The world's richest man says he wants to focus on his charitable projects. He's being replaced by Andy Jassy, who runs Amazon's cloud computing business.
And meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now. Joe, best day ever for a meteorologist, right?
Yes, best day ever for meteorologists. You must be referring to Groundhog Day.
I am. I saw your Twitter picture of Wesley, and if you haven't seen it, you need to check out Johanna's Twitter because it's amazing.
Hilarious. Hilarious.
Yeah, let's just say it used to be a great day pre-Johanna as a meteorologist, and now I am overshadowed by rodents on this day. Okay, they are pretty cute, and I can't believe I'm going to do this, but I'm going to give you the groundhog breakdown today. Take a look at pictures from a couple of Canadian groundhogs. First, you're looking at Shubenacadie Sam out of Nova Scotia, who is predicting an early spring. He did not see his shadow. And now we're over to Wiarton Willie, one of the famous ones out of Ontario, who also did not see his shadow and is calling for an early spring. And finally, the most famous of them all, Punxsutawney Phil out of Philadelphia, where we think this time-honored tradition started. He is going against Canadian forecasters and is saying we've got 6 more weeks of winter. So there you have it. I feel a little silly giving you my forecast now, but we'll dive into it anyway. I mean, I won't go on about how we're in a La Nina and the odds are that this is going to be a longer winter. We'll just see how it all plays out in the end, shall we? 4 at YVR right now. We do have cooler air in the mix thanks to this low dragging out more northwesterly winds. High pressure building in for tomorrow, as I mentioned earlier. It's a nice looking Wednesday with clearing skies before increasing cloud. And look at all that widespread snow for Thursday across the province, actually getting snow down to valley levels thanks to Thursday's snowmaker. But a nice one for the province tomorrow. Lots of sunshine, really just seeing that system impacting Haida Gwaii, central and northern coastal sections. You can see some wet snow in Prince Rupert before things change over. Breaking down the long range forecast, we've got that mix of sun and cloud for tomorrow. Heading into Thursday, the rain will start nice and early, sort of around 7, 8, 9 a.m. for Metro Vancouver. Rain through most of the day. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, working on this forecast a bit, generally dry. May see a few spits and spots in there. We've got a northwesterly flow, but I don't see any major system riding that jet stream in. So at this point, we may even see it trend towards a sunnier Saturday and Sunday. And I have been looking at the long range models. It does look like things are going to cool down for early next week. We're already going to start to see that cool down in our overnight lows Sunday into Monday and getting into a long stretch of cool temperatures for next week. I'll be keeping an eye on any snow forecast. At this point, it does look cool and clear, but we are not out of the woods for winter yet. I won't compare that to the groundhog forecast yet, but stay tuned.
Competition from rodents once a year for you. Yes. Yeah, there you
That's
go.
right. That's right.
But you know, for many people, every day during the pandemic seems like kind of a repeat of the last.
Greg Ross has more on why you may feel like your life is a scene out of the movie Groundhog Day. Take a look.
It's an early spring.
Like everything else during this pandemic, the Wiarton Willie celebrations had to be scaled back this year. The good news is no shadow means an early spring, although many people seem to be less concerned about when the winter is going to end and more focused on when these lockdowns are going to end. Remember how Bill Murray's character in the movie Groundhog Day relived the same day over and over again? Well, that's kind of how people are feeling these days thanks to this pandemic.
Every day's the same.
Can't even tell the difference between Saturday or Monday.
I feel like a hamster in a hamster wheel.
And people are getting sick of the same routine.
Every day I wake up, I make a coffee, I have a protein smoothie, I do yoga.
I walk dogs, I get home, I try to think about what to eat for dinner, and I go to sleep early.
Hanging with him.
You're sick of hanging out with him?
Yeah, I hang out with him every day, all day.
But they may be surprised to find out that things haven't actually changed as much as they think.
Our routines before the pandemic lockdown were also not changing very much.
Psychologist James Dankert says the difference is we no longer have as many distractions.
We could go out of our office and get a coffee whenever we wanted, or we could go and chat to our office mates whenever we wanted. And those things have been taken away from us. So it does feel a lot more constrained, a lot more monotonous.
He says there are things we can do to try and beat the boredom.
But rather than focusing on what we can't do, perhaps just spending a little bit of time focusing even on the little things that we can do. There's a great quote from Andy Warhol that is, you need to let the little things that ordinarily bore you suddenly thrill you. So if you could find interest and curiosity and excitement in the little things in your life, then I think you'll be able to keep boredom at bay.
It's lovely. I don't know what to say.
And if that doesn't work, well, you can always try to get Andy McDowell to fall in love with you.
No matter what happens tomorrow, or for the rest of my life, I'm happy now. Because I love you.
I think I'm happy too.
Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Oh, yes. Love Bill Murray in that. You know, I think it's almost 30 years old. That's when it came out. And that's a rom-com. He was a frustrated weather forecaster that ended up in Punxsutawney, of all places. You haven't seen it? Sorry.
Oh, it's one of my favorite movies. I love it.
I'm not
Anita?
saying anything.
Hey, that's your new routine for tonight. That'll,
yes.
Tonight you've got to watch it. That's
yeah, I got to add the movie into the routine. Done. I mean, if I'm going to watch it ever, today's the day to do it. So.
And then you can watch it all over again tomorrow. Thanks, Joe.
And the next day.
Well, a legend and a trailbreaker. What Willie O'Ree had to say to some middle school students in PEI next.
The reason I do this is it's an expression of my creativity, because I can make something literally out of this world. My name is Morgan Hager, and I'm a local costume maker and designer here in Calgary. When I was designing this costume, I took a look at where I live, the climate that I live in, and sort of thought to myself, what would a character living in a cold planet make their armor and their costume and their outfit? So I incorporated a lot of fur, a lot of inspiration from animals and stuff like that. My blaster, it comes right out. You can aim right away. Done and done. Wrist guards, they generally mount weapons on there. So flamethrowers, grappling hooks, and they're also usually made of Beskar as well. So say you're fighting a Jedi because you want to kill them, you block a lightsaber like that. This is my helmet. I actually got somebody to 3D print it for me. I made everything else. The visor, for instance, is used from an old welding helmet. I did want it to look a little bit beat up and rough, so if you look there closely, you can see bumps and bruises, as if it was cast roughly using poor, cheap casting methods. I've been watching Star Wars since I was a kid. I loved the original trilogy, I loved the prequels. The new ones are kind of up to debate, but this Mandalorian series, it just blew my mind. How gorgeous it is, and every single aspect of the detail is just kept. And I really like the show. You know, whenever I go out in this costume, I see many people smile, and I think that that's a beautiful effect that costumes such as this can have on people. Heck, even myself, whenever I see somebody wearing anything from a costume that is personal to me, it makes me just so excited to see even them having fun. People always do ask about the Beskar, and you know, Of course it's real. Why wouldn't it be? I am Mandalorian after all.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
CBC is proud to sponsor the 27th annual online Victoria Film Festival, Vancouver Island's largest and longest-running film fest. Get your tickets today at victoriafilmfestival.com. And never miss a special programming series or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
Well, a group of students in Charlottetown had a very special virtual visitor.
The man who broke the color barrier in the NHL. Willie O'Ree was the first black player in the league when he suited up for Boston in 1958. He played for more than 2 decades and retired in 1979. O'Ree opened doors for players who have come after him, and he has worked as a diversity ambassador for the NHL for 20 years.
And he spoke to students at a PEI school yesterday, all part of Black History Month.
I thought sometimes of failing, but you know, if you feel within your heart, within your mind, and set goals for yourself, you know, those things there can overcome anything.
That was just one lesson these students at Birchwood got this week. It was part of a panel including Hockey Hall of Famer Willie O'Ree. He shared what it was like to be the first black player in the NHL and talked to students about the importance of inclusion.
We watched the Willie doc last week once we were put in contact with the organizers, and we've been learning a bit about his life and the struggles he faced and kind of how he persevered through that and his resilience.
Students say they learned a lot about O'Ree's life on and off the ice, but also learned lessons about what they should do if they see acts of racism.
Like sticking up for the person or helping them out and just being a good person in the community. Yeah, it's definitely gotten better, but we can still keep moving forward.
O'Ree also spoke to students about perseverance and believing in themselves.
I just felt that I was a hockey player. I looked beyond the color of my skin. I was just another hockey player.
Students say they are glad to be part of the event and they want to do their part to help end racism.
It's been really inspiring because he's gone through so much, and it makes me feel like we live in a world that everyone needs to be included, and I just want to make sure that I can help.
The panel is part of a larger project by learning provider Classroom Champions. The company has developed an education guide focused on fighting racism. It will be available for 15,000 schools and youth sports organizations. Tony Davis, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Okay, Windsor Pizza is a popular pizza joint in Windsor, Ontario, as you probably guessed. But what's less obvious is the lengths its customers will go to for their favorite pie.
Yeah, last week an order traveled 4,000 kilometers from the restaurant to Parksville on Vancouver Island. We caught up with the people on either end of the transaction.
Oh, he just texted me about 2 Fridays ago and said, I want Windsor pizza. So he moved out west years ago, and every time he'd come home, we'd order Windsor pizza. In 2004, he was down and took pizza back in his suitcase, and that didn't go well. So this time he just texted and said, can you ship me a pizza if I order it? I'm sure, let's do it. Struss was waiting for the waybills because it took like a week and a half for Canada Post to get them here, and he was dying for pizza. He's like, are the waybills there? Are the waybills there? I'm like, not yet. But after that, actually went pretty smooth because he called Windsor Pizza. They made them. She called me the next day, said they're ready for pickup. My husband and I went over, picked up the boxes, brought them home. I said to him last week, next time you want to do it in the summer. It's freezing outside. And I have to go to FedEx and go get the pizzas. Let's do this in July.
Definitely worth all the trouble to get it here from Windsor Pizza. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, he's got the beer going there too as well.
I have so many questions. When you reheat it, was it as good? Also, if you're going through all this trouble to get Windsor Pizza, why are you giving the bird the pizza?
Must be a special bird, I guess.
I guess.
Little pandemic delivery for somebody desperately in need of pizza from Windsor, Ontario.
I can think of a few places I would like a pizza mailed to me from.
Exactly.
All right, you can always watch our newscasts online, cbc.ca/BC.
We're going to order up Mr. Dan Burrett for your 11 o'clock local news. It's happening right after the National. Thanks for watching tonight. Have a good night.